She dressed in hope, not silk, knowing she would blend into the shadows of her own family. Every eye sparkled for the bride, none for her sister at the edge of the room. But the truth of what it feels like to be invisible burns deeper behind a silent smile. What if the only hand offered all night belonged to the one guest no one could imagine? This is the story of a wedding, a world apart, and the moment everything changed. Don't look away. You'll want to witness every second. Evelyn sat perfectly still at the mirrored vanity, hands folded, makeup just a bit understated, hair in the soft bun she and Claire had first learned in middle school. The room overflowed with laughter, perfume, and nervous excitement as bridesmaids zipped up satin and practiced their toasts. In the heart of the commotion was Claire, radiant, fidgeting in an ivory dress, everyone's muse for the day. For Evelyn, the effect was doubled. It was always doubly bright and doubly sharp when her twin sister was the star. A knock on the door barely registered. The day's first hint. Everyone expected Evelyn to move, but no one waited for her. But Evelyn had grown used to the pauses, the moments she spent silently framing herself in every group photo, her wheelchair carefully tucked away, hands primly on her lap, smile just right. Since the accident 2 years ago, she'd become expert at stepping aside. Sympathy met her everywhere, but true attention rarely did. Family arrived in waves. Their mother swept into the bridal suite, eyes glistening with pride at Claire. Her hug to Evelyn was warm but brief, fingers only lightly touching her shoulder, already turning back to bouquets and schedules. Old friends fussed about last-minute details, a whirlwind of cheerful chaos that left one twin quietly parked by the window. Voices murmured, "Let's make a memory," and Evelyn, whether in or out of the frame, kept one for herself. The aching loneliness of being at once present and unseen. The ceremony unfolded with a sterile beauty. Church bells, scripted vows, whispering flower girls. Evelyn found herself wheeled by the usher to the end of the front row, set just out of the line of candid photos. No one meant offense. It just happened, the way invisible things happen, effortlessly. At cocktail hour, Evelyn tried to join a knot of Claire's college friends by the piano, but the circle opened and closed with gentle, subtle force, a choreography she'd learned since childhood. She sipped mineral water, watched strangers dance, watched Claire move with impossible ease. Her laughter, her beauty, the way the whole room followed wherever she went. The meal was exquisite, the artichoke hearts, the lamb in wine sauce, details Evelyn would remember alone. Toast followed toast, to beauty, to new beginnings, to Claire's incredible spirit. Each word hammered home her outsider status, the conversation always circling back on her. "You're so brave to come out tonight," or "I bet Claire is so glad to have her sister here." Always here, never with. Under the fairy lights, as music began and the real celebration swirled, Evelyn searched for a familiar face. Her father, caught in his own well of regret, avoided her eyes. Cousins staged selfies, uncles and aunts gushed over Claire's first dance. Evelyn hovered, debated leaving early, then chided herself. Tonight was supposed to be about Claire's happiness. She was proud, truly, and she smiled as much as she could. But behind every bright hour, the ache grew. Not just pain from the chair or the old injury, but from a lifetime of spectating. And so, in a ballroom glittering with promise, the forgotten sister watched the world whirl by, desperate for an anchor. No one noticed her wipe a tear, hide a wince behind quick laughter, or let her gaze wander to the edge of the dance floor, where, unknown to her, a stranger already watched. In this room of 100 hearts, Evelyn's loneliness was so sharp she nearly missed the one glance from across the room. Unjudging, unexpected, and for the first time tonight, just a little hopeful. The reception hall glittered with chandeliers, laughter, and clinking glasses. Tables overflowed with wine and orchids. The dance floor shone under shifting spotlights. Yet in this cloud of celebration, Evelyn felt the chill of being apart. Her cousin greeted her cheerfully at first, but the conversation quickly spun toward Claire's honeymoon plans, leaving Evelyn on the edge, nodding between sips of untouched champagne. Servers glided around her chair, offering canapes and gentle smiles. "Can I get you anything else?" one asked, but his eyes darted as he worked, and she shook her head with the practiced gentleness of someone who doesn't want to inconvenience. A tablemate, a distant aunt, leaned in conspiratorially. "Aren't you just so proud of your sister? She's always been the lively one, yes?" Evelyn smiled, hiding the sting. Every overture circled back to the accident, never to her stories or dreams, just comments on her bravery for showing up or jokes about wheelchair parking. As the dinner faded and the music rose, the couple's first dance approached like a slow tide. Claire's veil shimmered, her new husband beaming, guests gathered, phones raised, a perfect tableau. Evelyn clapped, remembering childhood, two blonde heads and secret giggles before life diverged so cruelly. Now applause for her sister felt both genuine and bittersweet, a celebration and a loss. When the DJ invited all couples to the floor, the guests spilled onto the parquet. Heels, loafers, polished wheels of rolling carts. Evelyn sat off to the side, her chair subtly blocked by a potted palm. The knot in her chest grew. Mothers, fathers, friends drifted over only briefly. "Are you okay here?" Or, "Want me to move you closer?" But before she could answer, they'd vanish, chasing shared memories elsewhere. Her mother, anxious about photography, darted over once, fussing with Evelyn's shawl and hair. But her words were hurried. "Let's just fix this for the family photos." After 3 snaps, she was called away by another crisis, a missing boutonniere, a worried flower girl. Evelyn watched her mother drift, always in motion, never landing where she truly yearned. When the band launched into something soft and jazzy, Evelyn tried to fade into the music, to convince herself she preferred it this way, watching, not noticed, letting the celebration swirl as a beautiful storm. But even the staff looked past her now, moving trays around her as if she were an inconvenient pillar. Across the ballroom, Claire sparkled in her new happiness, though once Evelyn saw her scanning the room anxiously. Their eyes met for a brief second. Evelyn smiled, small and genuine, but Claire was whisked into another spin before she could cross the floor. By midnight, Evelyn's loneliness pressed against her bones like the ache of winter. She considered asking to be taken home early, but pride held her in place. The party wasn't over, and she wouldn't be the weak link in her sister's happiest night. She forced another smile for a photographer, though the lens never quite caught her. That was when a new sensation cut through her isolation, a pause in the crowd, a subtle hush. Across the sea of faces, someone watched her, not with pity or distraction, but with a steady curiosity that felt, for the first time all evening, like an open door. In this moment, lost, tired, her heart raw, Evelyn looked up and met his gaze. The billionaire's expression held no condescension, only the simplest of questions. Do you want to be seen? And maybe, just maybe, tonight's story was about to turn. Across the sea of glitter and sequins, Mark Hastings watched with the careful detachment of someone used to commanding boardrooms, not wedding dance floors. In any other setting, the billionaire would be the center of gravity, a magnet for attention and whispers. Tonight, among family heirlooms and champagne towers, he was simply the impressive business friend, seated near the father of the bride, out of place but observing everything. From his table, Mark noticed the subtle choreography of the room, the orbit of laughter around Claire, the way her arm curled possessively around her new husband, the applause, the way guests angled to get into photographs. Yet his attention was drawn repeatedly to the figure by the palm, Evelyn. There was something determined, almost regal in her stillness, the way her eyes followed the dancers with longing tempered by dignity. Where others might see awkwardness, Mark recognized someone who had made peace with being overlooked, whose quiet pain had become practiced armor. The first time Evelyn's eyes met his across the floor, a flicker of surprise passed between them. Mark, usually so composed, found himself unexpectedly unsettled. He noticed the quick shuffle of her hands, adjusting a napkin, tucking in a loose strand of hair. Unlike the other guests, she did not flatter, did not angle for attention. She simply saw him as she saw everyone, clearly without performance. When he excused himself from a strained conversation about hedge funds, Mark found himself wandering toward the edge of the dance floor. He stopped near Evelyn, the hum of voices dimming, leaning in as if asking confidential advice. "Quite a celebration," he said, voice pitched low, only for her. Evelyn startled, then smiled. "It's beautiful, isn't it? You can almost forget everything that's missing." Mark's eyes narrowed with curiosity. "You sound like you see more than most." She hesitated, then shrugged. "When you sit on the sidelines, you see what everyone rushes past. I like to think I'm here for the untold stories." He laughed, a short, unguarded sound. "I can relate. Sometimes being outside is the only place you can truly watch." Their words were guarded at first, but something in the exchange loosened a knot in both. Mark asked about her interests: art, travel, the year she spent in Paris before the accident. Evelyn, sensing no pity in his tone, allowed herself to share a memory or two. Galleries with ramps she learned to love. The challenge of seeing beauty in unexpected places. A waiter paused, clearly hesitant. "Would you like another drink, sir, miss?" Evelyn glanced at Mark. For once she was offered the question as a peer. Mark noticed, nodded, and ordered coffee. "Stay," he said, genuine and gentle. "Sometimes the best views are from the edge." For a few moments the noise and swirling music faded, replaced by their quiet, improbable dialogue. Evelyn felt her isolation thin, replaced by curiosity, warmth, even the gentle tingle of anticipation. She saw in Mark neither celebrity nor savior, just someone else out of step with the crowd. As the music built to another crescendo, Mark watched Claire spin in her husband's arms, then returned his gaze to Evelyn. "If you don't mind," he said, "I prefer the company of someone who sees the world as it is, not just as they wish it were." Evelyn's lips curved up, perhaps for the first time that night in genuine delight. Unbeknownst to them both, the first fragile threads of something new had formed. A world apart suddenly felt just a little closer, as if the space at the edge of the room was, for a moment, exactly where both belonged. As the evening danced toward its peak, the wedding crowd rode a high of excitement. Group selfies, sparkling cocktails, and the raucous energy that comes after too many toasts. Evelyn lingered at her table, inwardly torn between pride in her sister and the constant ache of distance. She watched as guests spooled across the glossy dance floor, the father-daughter dance, college friends in a circle, couples old and new, swirling to unchained melody. At the edge of this glittering world, Evelyn felt smaller than ever, her wheelchair now scarcely visible in the shadows. For the third time, a well-meaning uncle tried to pull her closer to the dance, only to be intercepted by another relative's distraction. She gave up waving him off, laughter quiet and resigned. She was used to being the afterthought, the brave one, the static portrait in a sea of movement. Across the floor, Mark Hastings quietly excused himself from another power-laden conversation. He wove among the guests, not with his usual purposeful stride, but with a gentleness reserved for rare moments. He stopped by the band, requested a subtle shift in music, and scanned the crowd. His gaze found Evelyn. For a heartbeat, the distance between them was all that existed. As the band modulated into a slower, sweeter song, Mark approached Evelyn's chair. The music dimmed the noise, and a hush seemed to fall in a circle around them. "Would you honor me?" Mark asked, extending a hand, his expression open. Shock registered in Evelyn's eyes and rippled through nearby guests. Heads turned, whispers flared. "Me?" she managed, heat blooming across her cheeks. Mark smiled. "Yes, you. Would you share this dance with me?" For a moment, hesitation warred with longing. No one, outside a handful of therapy classes, had asked Evelyn to dance since the accident. Still, it was habit to decline, to hide. But Mark's hand stayed, patient and unhurried, his gaze unwavering. With a deep breath, Evelyn nodded, voice trembling. "No one ever asks." Carefully, Mark bent to one knee beside her. He placed his hand lightly on hers, asking wordlessly if she was ready. Together with quiet teamwork and a conspiratorial smile, he wheeled her onto the floor. The band's notes settled like starlight as Mark moved in sync with her chair, improvising a waltz, sometimes turning her slowly beneath the chandelier, sometimes simply guiding her through the currents of other dancers who parted to give them space. At first, the room watched in stunned silence. Some partygoers blinked back tears. Others simply stared, confronted for the first time with a scene that felt both shocking and absolutely right. Then, as Mark gently guided Evelyn in a graceful spin, applause broke out. Quiet at first, then swelling. Claire, the bride, saw her sister. Really saw her, for the first time all night, and her face softened from pride to a watery, joyful relief. For Evelyn, the moment was magic. A feeling of freedom and being seen all at once. Of belonging, of claiming space she'd always been denied. The pair finished their dance, and Mark returned her with a flourish and a bow, whispering, "Thank you for trusting me." As the night went on, the aftershocks of the gesture lingered. Strangers came to chat. Cousins apologized for overlooking her. Old friends offered hugs, laughter, and overdue stories. Beside the open ballroom doors, Evelyn felt lighter. She understood now. Sometimes it only takes one person seeing you for the world to tip, and for new beginnings to blossom right on the edge of an old wound. The echoes of that extraordinary dance lingered throughout the glittering hall, changing the very air. People who had ignored Evelyn all night now saw her with startled new eyes. The boundary between the celebrated and the sidelined had been broken, if only for a moment. Laughter and chatter paused as guests processed what they'd witnessed. A simple act of kindness that had shattered the quiet, invisible wall surrounding the forgotten sister. Claire, the bride, watched Evelyn with tear-softened eyes, shame flickering behind her pride. She crossed the dance floor, finally enveloping her twin in an embrace that needed no explanation. "I'm sorry," she whispered, voice raw. "I should have made sure you felt this happy all along." Their mother joined, cheeks wet, holding both daughters close. Where there had been distance, breaking the ice became possible at last. The rest of the evening, Evelyn was no longer just an afterthought. Guests old and new came forward, not to offer pity but genuine conversation. An old friend reminisced about high school mischief. A cousin told her she'd inspired him to volunteer at a local center for people with disabilities. Even the staff, who had busied themselves around her for hours, began to see her as someone with stories to share, not simply someone to care for. Meanwhile, Mark Hastings faded into the background, content to watch the ripple of his gesture remaking the night. He was approached by several guests, some prompted to share their own stories of feeling unseen, others asking questions about his business with new warmth and candor. For him, it was a rare night where connection trumped power. Some older relatives and distant acquaintances murmured about discretion and drawing attention, but their voices were drowned out by genuine applause and laughter. The live band found a gentle, celebratory groove. playing songs that invited everyone, mobility aids or not, onto the dance floor. For the rest of the night, there were no more invisible sisters. In quiet corners, Evelyn found herself exchanging smiles with the photographer, who began to frame her in more than just candids, and with children who asked for a waltz of their own. She even caught Mark's eye from across the room. He nodded, a gentle confirmation that one act can rewrite more than just a single evening. When it was time for the bride and groom's final goodbyes, Claire pulled Evelyn into the spotlight, making a short, unscripted toast. Tonight's happiness is about more than one love story. It's about remembering who stands with us, even on the hardest days. Evelyn, you're my heart's first friend. Thank you, and thank you, Mark, for showing us what courage and kindness really look like. As applause thundered one last time, Evelyn allowed herself to enjoy the light. Her loneliness eased, her identity finally expanded beyond the chair. She realized as she moved among new friends and old that the night had given her more than a dance. It offered proof that visibility is a gift, but true belonging is earned. One honest gesture, one open heart at a time. Long after the last sparkler flickered out beneath the stars, Evelyn lingered in the gentle afterglow, her mind replaying every shimmering frame of the night. The wedding had finished, the hall returned to stillness, but inside her a hush had bloomed, a far cry from the raw loneliness of only hours before. That weekend marked a quiet turning point. Claire, her newlywed happiness tempered by the night's revelations, made a point in the following days to reach out, not with apologies alone, but with genuine effort. Phone calls and coffee invitations became routine. Even their mother softened, calling to share stories, sometimes just to ask, "How are you, really?" in a way that left space for the honest answer. For Evelyn, the change was more than familial. Mark's invitation to dance had left ripples everywhere she turned. At work, where co-workers now greeted her with real inquiry, having seen the wedding video posted to social media. At therapy, where the staff beamed, asking her to share her story with a new group of clients. She had become, in a matter of hours, someone the world couldn't quite overlook. Mark stayed in touch, at first with emails discussing the art show he wanted her opinion on, then with quiet lunches in busy cafes where, for once, no one regarded her with pity or surprise. He never mentioned the wedding directly, yet each meeting bristled with a simple understanding that sometimes the smallest action can upend a lifetime of silence. Life didn't become perfect. There were still days when Evelyn felt herself slipping into the margins, resentful of the effort it took to be noticed. But now she recognized the pattern and countered it, reaching out herself, daring to steer conversations, to spark laughter, to let her own light claim the space it deserved. Months later, at a family dinner, Claire offered a toast. Two sisters, and the moments that finally show us what we've missed. Evelyn lifted her glass, proud, not only of her sister's new awareness, but of her own courage to be present, not only as a guest, but as herself. Sometimes it takes a single dance to change not only a night, but the course of a life. Evelyn knew that the spotlight would return to others and old habits might creep back from time to time. But now she also knew that her story, unfinished as it was, mattered. She was no longer only the forgotten twin, the silent witness in the crowd. She was seen. And from that night onward, Evelyn was determined not to disappear ever again.